Welcome to Fair with Mr. Nice Guy. I'm your host, MNG, and today we're going to talk about the other parent. Now, one of the things that you have to understand is that it's an unavoidable situation. But before we go ahead and get into that, make sure you like, subscribe, and you go ahead and share our content. Make sure you look at all the other videos that we have out there. We're talking about some great stuff. We definitely want to go ahead and start this community of fellowship with fathers and parents, just to make sure that everybody has somebody to lean on and they ain't got nobody to lean on in their circle. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into it. So when we're talking about the other parent, and let me just give you some background on what I mean about the other parent. If you are in a situation, or not even situation, if you have a baby mother, or if you have a baby father, and y'all are currently not together, I really don't care about the extra stuff that is happening. But if y'all not together and y'all are dating other people, what happens is that now you have 4 parents instead of 2 parents, or you have 3 parents instead of 2 parents. And what happens is that a lot of different ideals kind of get mixed in there. And for the guys, I want to tell you, and for the women, I want to tell you both that it's an unavoidable situation. Regardless of who custody the kid is in, it is an unavoidable situation. You cannot expect the other party, man or woman, to not date or have your kid around other people while they're growing up. It's unavoidable, especially if you're talking about 18 years. Matter of fact, if we go beyond 18 years, that they're just supposed to do it for the rest of their lives, you can disagree with me or not. You can be jealous, how the case is. He may find somebody better than you. That's a possibility. He may find somebody worse than you. She may find somebody better than you. She may find somebody worse than you. It's unavoidable. Humans like companionship. Humans like love. So in that case, it's going to be hard to have a child in your custody and not run into somebody that you don't want to talk to, or somebody come and approach you and want to talk to you. Men talk to women with kids right next to them all the time. It's not something that's uncommon for the men. Women don't really. Men will use a kid to go and talk to a woman. Some women just think that's cute. Dad with their son and everything. It's nice, right? But the other parent is what I want to talk about. So one of the things I definitely want to say about this is that yes, it is an unavoidable situation. It's not something that you can predict that's going to happen. Even for my situation, I knew that it was going to be a point in time that my son's mother was going to meet somebody. I was not going to sit here and tell her, hey, I don't want you to have this man around my son. Yeah, I have my son full time, but I don't want this man around my son. I don't know who he is. I can only trust that she's going to make the right decision for our child. And if she doesn't make the right decision for our child, unfortunately, then I will have to get the courts involved, especially if I feel like it's going to be a danger to limit her parenting time or get her supervised visits. You can do that. I just want you to understand that in these situations, you can definitely use that information as a tool to win some of your cases in court. And I talk about that in some of my other videos of how to use information as a tool to get the things that you want in court. Now, it does require a few maneuvers to be able to get that information. I'm not talking about like behind the back or sneaky stuff or anything like that. Sometimes it's just conversation. You just have to be able to listen, and you have to be very personable. You can't hold grudges. That's one of the things I talk about in my podcast show, talk about maintaining your composure. You have to be able to communicate effectively. That's another podcast, called Co-Parenting, Communication is an Art. That's another podcast. That's talking about the communication that you have with your, I'm about to say significant other, but it's not a significant other, with your kid's parent, okay? So, and I talk about that stuff because I've done it. I've maintained, there's been plenty of times where I don't lose my cool. And this is one of them other situations where you have to be mindful of of the things that you do and say, especially because you have a little kid. Because kids, they absorb a lot of information. That's the first thing. The second thing is that kids will go back and they will talk about the things that happen. So I had to make sure that my son understood what boundaries were. And he understood what he can tell and what he could not tell. So I've had my son since he was 3 years old. So the primary idea is that you cannot talk about the things that happen over here. And I don't discuss with my son, or I don't ask him questions about what happens that go on when he's at his mom's house. My only concern is, hey, did you have a good time? Yeah. He didn't come back with any bruises. He didn't come back, bloodied up, or there was no conversation about him going to the hospital. None of that stuff. So I need people to be mindful of the other parent, because that parent is going to be there whether and the reason why I call them a parent, because they could be a boyfriend, they could be anything. The reason why I call them a parent is because regardless of the time frame that they're in that child's life, whether it's short term or long term, they have an impression on that child. They have a particular impression. Now, it could be good, it could be bad. You really don't know. But regardless of the case, no matter how long you and your baby mama, your baby dad have been separated, they're going to find somebody else. So you need to understand that there's going to be somebody else with your child, whether they're there full time because the kid is over there 5 or 7 days out of the week and you pick them up every other weekend. They're going to be there. They're going to be involved in their lives. They're going to have conversations around them. They're going to have conversations with them. They're going to participate in activities with them. So you have to be mindful that there's going to be another person that is creating an influence on that child in their life, and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, there's a few things you can do about it. That all depends on whether something negatively happens or something harmful happens. Then definitely you can have some kind of contribution to that changing. But for the most part, there isn't much you can do about it. And I really want to stress the point of how much of you can't. I want to stress how much. I want to stress that you can't avoid it. Is unavoidable. So you're just gonna have to get used to it. Now, here's some strategies that I will give to you, and you really have to be healed enough to be able to do this. Because if you're not healed from the relationship and left it behind, you're not gonna be able to do none of these strategies. I mean, you probably will be able to do some of them, but not without a little bit of harm coming your way about it, right? So the first thing is that if the party or if the person is in a kid's life for a significant amount of time, during the dating stage. So let's go with our first example. So our first example is that the kid lives with one of the parents. So let's just say the kid lives with the mother. Okay, the mother is dating somebody. Okay, so she gets up to a year of dating this particular individual. Now, I think that 6 months is probably a good time to meet the other party. Six months don't seem like a lot of time in dating, but when you have a child, there's not too many situations that I've come across. I'm not going to say anything across the world, but that I've come across where the child wasn't introduced to the boyfriend or girlfriend before or after 6 months. Sometime before, but probably right around 6 months or after 6 months, they probably can kind of get an introduction right then and there. And if that's the case, they start to go out and they go on these family dates or family outings, depending on the mother, depending on her and their interactions and how she's feeling him and the things that he wants to do and maybe his suggestions for them to have these family outings, and they're going to occur, family trips and everything, just so he can spend more time with the mother. Now on the father's end, it's probably going to happen maybe sooner than later, and it all depends on whether you got a boy or a girl, but it could happen a lot sooner on the father's end than it is on the mother's end. But regardless of the case, I can say for the women that is in that situation, and that has a kid so far as being a father, I would want to go ahead and meet an individual. Now, my son's mother has had her current for like a few years now. I met him like once or whatnot. She likes to keep us separate. I really don't know why, but she likes to keep us separate. But I've made suggestions to be able to meet this person because there's some miscommunication that's happening with raising our son. And I just want to make sure that if we're going to raise him, that we need to be on the same page. So the first strategy is that you want to be able to meet this person. And the reason why you want to meet this person is so you can actually get a understanding on this person's personality type, or just their personality altogether. You can kind of gauge whether or not this person is going to be a very influential person of a positive nature, or if there's going to be an influential person that's going to bring harm to the situation. Now, if the person is going to bring harm to the situation, this is one thing that you can use as a tool when it comes to court. You just document this stuff at this point in time. You know that the dude she dealing with is a dope dealer. He sells drugs. Maybe her house gets raided. Maybe there's a warrant out for his arrest. Maybe he's doing something at her house that she doesn't know anything about, but you are aware of it. You take that documentation and you file that with the courthouse. That can grant you, or could possibly, I'm not gonna say it's officially, but could have possibly grant you temporary custody. But you have to be able to prove it. No, courts don't go based on hearsay. Courts don't go based on anything that doesn't have anything substantial to back it up. So I need you to remember that. If you're ever looking to try to get custody of your kid, you have to leave the emotion out of it. You have to leave the hearsay out of it, okay? You can't be in the he say, she say competition, okay? If you don't have evidence, it doesn't exist. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna work well for you. I can tell you from experience, if you do not have the evidence, it's not gonna happen. I talked about this in another show. Because I had, one of the things that I did was I made my son mother sign contracts. So every time she reduced her parenting time, or she changed her parenting time, I put it in a contract. And then I would file those contracts with the courthouse. Now, granted, sometimes, depending on who your judge is, the courts may recognize it, the courts may not recognize it. But at the end of the day, I have on record that you signed this document that basically stated that you wanted to change your parenting time. I have documentation that states that you want to reduce your parenting time. Regardless of the case, I have the documentation. I filed that with the courthouse, whether they recognize it or not. I have the documentation. That lets the judge know that I'm about my business. I'm not here to play games. I'm looking for the best interest of my child. I build my case, and I build my case through information, okay? Police officers do the same thing. Investigators do the same thing. Detectives do the same thing. They're all the same people, but they all do the same thing, just different titles. They all do the same thing. So when you're actually looking at the big picture and you think that you don't have anything to contribute to the court system, or you think you will go to jail working in the court system, or you think that you don't have enough information when you go in there, trust me. If you know and learn how to build your case, I know a few people sit here and you watch those cop shows and you see how they go out there, they interview people, they start gathering information. I'm not saying go out there and interview people. That's not what I'm saying. But you can definitely gather information when an opportunity presents itself. If something happens over your kid's mother house, or wherever the case is, or wherever it's at, for either party, okay? I mainly want this for the man, but for either party, because it's all about the kids. One of the things that you want to go ahead and do is, if something happened over there, say there's police out there and everything, and you just pulling up trying to drop your kid off or whatever, look, I'm about to stop, talk to a police officer. Hey, what's going on? Oh, well, something happened. Is that police? They're going to file a police report. Hey, is there a possibility I can get a police report on that? Who can I get in contact with? That's evidence for your case. A neighbor across the street sees something. Hey, I'm sorry, but I know the people across the street. Don't tell them who you are. Don't tell them what your status is or your involvement. None of that. But I seen XYZ happen. Do you have any information? Oh well, such and such, situation happened and everything. Wow, didn't know. Especially if that person is a witness in a court transaction or in a court transcript. They're a witness. That's even better. At that point, you're just building your case. So that's the second strategy. Build your case with information. Okay. If you just have to, build your case with information because you need to know about the other parent, who that person is. I'm not saying go and do a whole investigation and check their Facebook and all that stuff. I'm not saying that, but there's other ways you can go ahead and gather information. If you are on good terms with the other parent. I was good at sparking up a conversation, and I would just primarily listen. I ain't had to say nothing, and it would just all the information would just come and I'd just be sitting there like, yup, really? Wow. Doing my documentation. And when I went ahead and took it to the courthouse, I made sure that I was using the information that I knew was going to get me in the situation that I needed to be. That's the second strategy. So the first strategy is you need to meet the person. Second strategy is you need to gain information. Okay. The third strategy is, even if you can't gather information, the third strategy is essential. Especially if the person's going to be around for a long time, especially if they go ahead and get married. And this goes for either party. You need to make sure that y'all all are on the same page, or at least close to the same page, with talking about how you're going to raise a child. Certain things that you want to talk about and you want to get them to understand. Okay? Lessons in life. Everybody was raised differently, so everybody's parenting styles is different. So you're going to have 3 or 4 different parenting styles when it comes to raising a child. Now, sometimes you and your spouse may be on the same page with how to raise them, and then the other person and their spouse may be on the same page with how to raise them. That's fine, okay? Because now you're only dealing with 2 different ideals. But if you're dealing with 4 different ideals, the kid gonna be confused as hell, okay? Even if the other 2 people aren't 100% involved, it doesn't mean that they still not going to have something to say to you, and then you going to have your own idea, and then that idea is going to be transformed because based on what they said, now you have a new idea that's been presented to you. So you're like, okay, well that makes sense. I didn't see it like that. So then you want to go and push that idea off of them. So you want to be, so you definitely want to understand how that dynamic works, right? All right. So as I said earlier, maintaining your composure. So even if you do, or you are in a situation where the other party is dating somebody and you don't want that person around the kid, you need to maintain your composure, okay? There's no reason to fly off the handle. There's no reason to get mad. There's no reason to get amped up. None of that stuff. Because what happens is you get mad and you show your ass. Let's be honest. You're going to show your ass. I have seen Instagram videos where there are women saying that, hey, don't bring this girl over here to pick up your child. I told you I don't want you to have women around my child or whatever like that. That's not up for you to say. That isn't, first of all, that's none of your business. Okay, that's the first thing. Now, regardless of who this girl is and the capabilities of the girl or the guy or whatever, in the beginning stages, like the first 3 months or whatever like that, the only thing you can really expect is that the parent of that child, whether it's the mother or the father, is the one that's making the appropriate decisions on behalf of the child. Until the other shoe drops, there's really nothing you can do. Again, it's unavoidable. You can't get past it, okay? You do the strategies, which is meet the person, gather your information, okay? And then once you gather your information, if you can gather your information, then you want to make sure that y'all all on the same playing field. Make sure y'all have the same ideals. If this person's going to be around for a long time, you really don't know. Because at some point in time, they can make it to marriage, but they can also divorce. Now, I'm not saying you gotta be all kumbaya and go to the mall with them, go to the bar with them, have drinks. I'm not saying all of that. Only thing I'm saying is that maintain your composure. Don't go out there flipping out. I've seen my son mother drop my son off with a whole bunch of people in the car, and I clearly explained to her to stop doing that, but she kept doing it. I can't tell her who to have in her car. I can't tell her any of that stuff. You know, I was at my dad's house and she put up with a guy, and then dropped my son off with the guy in the car. Now, was I gonna sit here and say, man, who the F is that? You got in the car and you bringing that MF over here? I'm not about to do all of that. What am I gonna do that for? I got custody of my son. He's living with me. It's up to me to mold and train him into the best person that he can be. Now, if she wants to have him around some dude that she feels like she's in love with and all that stuff, okay, cool. If she's gonna end up marrying this guy and he makes it past 6 months and gets into a year, all right, then I need to meet this guy because I need to know who my son is around at that point in time. Most relationships don't even, dating relationships, some of them don't even last that long. They be in and out. Okay, now if she was a prostitute, then it'd be cause for a conversation like, wait a minute, you got dudes in and out the house. Now granted, this is a way for you to make your money, but if you're gonna be doing these late night escapades, can my son come live with me or can my daughter come live with me so they don't have to be exposed to any of this stuff? I mean, that is right there, that is grounds to go straight to the courthouse and say, you know what, I got evidence showing that she got different people coming out the house. They doing this, they doing that. Like, this is not a safe environment for the child, especially if they're in there doing drugs or how the case is. Not like necessarily weed or anything, because technically that's illegal. But I mean, you just want to make sure. That what's occurring, what's happening, is always in the best interest of the child. You don't want to go after the other parent if it's not in the best interest of the child. Anytime that you decide to be spiteful, you're going to lose. You can win in the short term. You may even win in the long term if the other person is not knowledgeable about the court system. But I've always believed in the practice of doing things in the best benefit for my son. And every time that I did things in the best benefit for him, it always worked out. So that's the best advice I can give you. If you're gonna do something and you feel like it's always going to be in the best interest of the child, then go ahead and do it. And I really believe that you should really think about it. Like, really do some deep dive and thinking about it before you just go ahead and just execute it. Because you can execute it and it not be well thought out, and then you end up in a bad situation. That happens too. So just be mindful of the things that you're putting out there and the things that you're doing. So that's my thing. So based on some of the experiences that I went through with my son and his mother. So again, I've had my son since he was 3 years old, put him in school, watched him graduate from grade to grade. It's been the greatest experience, and now he's about to graduate high school. So I'm passing my experience along to everybody else just so they can have some strategies of how they can get around some of these situations, correct? So one situation that I can recall, and this happened about 2 years ago. So my son was about 15, about a year and a half ago. It was about 15, 16. So my son ended up going on this date. And before he went on the date, he had came and told me about it. He was like, hey Dave, I'm about to go on this date. And I was like, okay, all right, cool. So the way this story plays out is the girl asked him to go to the movies. Now, her auntie stated that she would go to the movies with my son and the little girl, and then she would go ahead and pay for their tickets. So I told my son, I said, oh, well, that's cool. That is very great for her to do that. Now, here's the thing. If she's going to go ahead and pay for y'all tickets, I suggest you go ahead and pay for y'all snacks. So I can give you some money, and you can pay for her snacks. You can pay for her popcorn, whatever you want to drink, slushy. You can pay for all of that. He was like, all right, cool. So then he went to go talk to his mom about it. Now, I didn't hear the conversation. So he comes and he tells me the conversation. We on our way to school. I'm not going to school. I'm taking him to school. So we on the way to school. I'm going to work. And he's like, so Dad, I'm like, yeah. He's like, so, I was talking to my mom and her boyfriend, and I told him about the date. And I told him what you said, and I said, okay. And he was like, yeah, so, my stepdad, because that's what he was calling him at the time, even though they're not married, but that's what he was calling him at the time, was basically like, a real man would pay for his own ticket. And I paused for a minute, and I said, wait a minute, say that one more time? He was like, well, a real man would pay for his own ticket. And I was like, a real man would pay for his own ticket? A real man would pay for his own ticket? So I had to ponder that for a second. I said, son, what did I tell you? You told me that you would give me money to go ahead and pay for all the other stuff. Like I will pay for the other snacks and stuff. I said, okay, well, you continue to do that. Because here's the thing. You're telling a 16-year-old that a real man will pay for his own ticket. Not a real man will pay for his ticket and her ticket. Just his ticket alone. How does that make him a real man? That doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense to me. So I finished the conversation out with my son, just basically telling him, like, listen, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, if we're talking about a real man and this concept or whatever, then we're basically looking at a person that is paying for her ticket, paying for your ticket, paying for the snacks and everything. Okay, so you're paying for the whole date, not just your own ticket. You're paying for the whole day. Matter of fact, it's not even really considered being a real man. Like, she asked you to go out, which is cool. Even if he had asked her to go out, if he had the money, I would have told him to go ahead and pay for the whole day. It wouldn't have been an issue, but since the auntie had stepped up and said that she was gonna pay for the tickets, I'm like, okay, well, we can go half. We can Dutch this joint. You see what I'm saying? So the fact that this gentleman basically stated that, her boyfriend basically stated that a real man will pay for his own ticket. Maybe that's how the conversation went. Maybe it didn't. Maybe my son only told me a little bit or half of the conversation. But I'm telling y'all this story just so y'all can understand that when you're dealing with the other parent, they may not have the same beliefs or understandings that you do so far as society, and it can also be contributed. Also, their views and their opinions can be contributed from how they were raised, what they seen when they grew up. They may have grew up in a broken household. They could be orphans, so they don't know their parents, or they grew up in an orphanage, or they grew up in an orphan family, or how the case is, or they grew up in a group home, so they don't really understand, so they don't really know. So that's why we have to sit there and we have to look at the strategies. We have to meet the person, gather the information, and then make sure that we all on the same page. And then just to even keep it 100 with you, I really wanted to talk to him about the whole idea, but my son's mother thought that I was mad about it. And I'm like, I'm not mad about it. I just want to make sure that if we're raising our child together, that we are all on the same page when it comes to raising him. We want to be on the same page. I don't want him to have conflicting ideals, conflicting conversations, because y'all think one thing and I'm thinking something else. But then, that's why he kind of lives with me. But I digress. This is Pharaoh, Mr. Nice Guy. Make sure you go ahead and share, like, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. We have a ton of new episodes coming up. We have a lot of things that's out there. I have some more advice for all the men out there that want to navigate the court system. So make sure you go ahead and subscribe. Click that notification bell, and I'll see you on the next recording. Peace.